Good Monday morning. I'm Dylan Rumrell, the mayor of the greatest city in America, Saint Augustine Beach. Mark Bailey,
Yes,
the greatest surfer in the city of Saint Augustine Beach.
I was not even in my own mind.
There you go.
In fact, I was out with some of the greatest ones yesterday with Mike Davis and Sal Rapero, and I'll tell you a story about my son in a few minutes.
All right, well.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Mark Bailey, what a great human being, one of the most well-known St. Augustine Beach Indians here in the great city of St. Augustine Beach, but all the things that you've done for our community, Mark, not just in the city of St. Augustine Beach, but the city of St. Augustine, St. Johns County, your family, the traditions. Tell me a little bit about yourself and being a beach boy.
Well, I appreciate that, Dylan. Thank you for all the kind words, and I have a lot I can say about you toward the end, but this is, I mentioned to you earlier, this was an idyllic place to grow up, and I really had the opportunity to, we were blessed that my parents moved here from Orlando. They were originally from Georgia, moved to Orlando, came to St. Augustine in the early 60s, actually late 50s, and my father bought a little beach house right at the end of 16th Street, right after Hurricane Dora. So that would have been 1965. And guess, and I see my friend Max Royal over there, he wasn't here at that point, but we'll talk about that in a few minutes, but right next to that beach house was a ramp. And we could drive cars, and of course all the cars flooded down 16th Street, and they could go north or south down the beach. So you could drive under the pier all the way into the state park. I know some people will not like this thought, but actually there were dune buggies that people took in the dunes down there, by the inlet, and it just was an amazing place. And the memories that I have growing up here really are some of the most vivid that I have of my life as a child. And as you mentioned, I grew up surfing. I had two brothers that surfed, and I started when I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and we didn't have leashes back then, and so I was surfing with a lot of the old, talk about legends, people like Frank Emerson, you might not have ever known, but Booger Bowles.
Booger Bowles.
You know him as Mike Bowles, and Chris Way, and Torrey Strange, and others, but as little Groms, as they called us, since we didn't have leases on our boards, if we got out there, I remember surfing of course the pier was much longer then. At one point it had the T on the end.
Right.
It had a green shack toward the middle that had one pinball machine and had great food. They served hamburgers, hot dogs, French fries. So we would go up there and probably eat for $1 or $2 and play at the one pinball machine. But we, out in the water, because we didn't have leashes, if we caught too many waves, the older guys would teach us a lesson, or if we got in their way, they'd just take our boards and paddle our boards out about 100 yards. And so we'd have to swim out. That's where we became good swimmers.
That's where we became good swimmers.
Very comfortable. So there are so many things I want to talk about that people may not know about the pier and all the attractions that were here. And I'm not sure if you've looked at any old pictures.
Oh, yeah. And the hotels that's still one of the old hotels sitting right there, but it's not actually a hotel anymore.
It was an old hotel, and it was an amazing place, and the folks that owned that, they were good friends of mine. We surfed together. There was a ballet studio here that the Leonards ran before it became Mr. Max Royal's office, who I believe became the city manager of July 24th, 1989.
Yep, that's
so you know what that means.
That's right.
We got a big anniversary.
Big anniversary.
Big anniversary coming up for you, Max. But I mentioned this at the ribbon cutting at Flagler College the other day for the fitness center. As a little kid, I would climb up the rocks, and my mother would take ballet from the Leonards in there. Her name was Pam. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry, but she was in there so graceful with her chin up, smiling, and she just loved her ballet. And I would knock on the glass. I probably was, 10, 11, 12 years old, been out in the water for 3 or 4 hours, zinc oxide, half washed off. I'd knock on the window and I'd wave to her, and she'd smile at me, and then she'd come around to the door and she'd say, "Go home, have a peanut butter sandwich, put some zinc oxide on, but you have to wait an hour before you can go back out surfing." Because they were always worried we were going to cramp up.
Get cramps.